And thank you, Deacon Corby, for your welcome. And it's a wonder to be with you this evening. It's a joy to be with you, to be here for the beginning of the Endice meeting. I thank Deacon Corby Valentine and all of those who have worked with him for this invitation and for coordinating our time together. I welcome all deacons and your wives and the widows of permanent deacons who are attending these days of refreshment and renewal. I commend you for taking the time to come together. In addition to the valuable sessions and the times for prayer, it is important that we are able to socialize with each other in mutual support of our ministries and outreach to God's people. The theme of this year's conference, Vocations, comes at a crucial time for the church, not only in the United States, but in the world. The recent election of Pope Leo XIV, the continuing wars in Ukraine, Gaza, Syria, and Darfur, and the rise of artificial intelligence present unique opportunities and challenges for our church in these times. I would like to expand upon three important aspects of the call of God to us as we minister to His people in these times: commitment, response, and interior resolve in persisting in vocational calling. I'm sure that many of you have had opportunities to attend the celebration of the sacrament of confirmation. Whether it is serving at the Mass as a deacon or attending confirmations of children or grandchildren, you may witness a variety of homilies from the bishop or priest who celebrates the sacrament. Don't comment on any of them here. One of my opening stories at confirmation relates an experience that I had as a young priest in my first parish assignment. A young man called. He asked to speak with me because he said that he felt his life did not have any direction. We met for over an hour, but there were three different parts of our conversation that indicated to me what was happening in his life. First of all, he talked of his college experience, and he said that he took a while before he declared a major in college. As a matter of fact, he was at the threshold of his junior year before he finally decided on declaring a major. Since his college graduation, he had taken a few jobs. None of them seemed to be quite right for him. He was always looking for something that would pay more, something that was better, something that was more suited to him. So he bounced around from job to job. The third part in the conversation that he spoke of that really told me and gave me a picture of what was going on was that he described he was dating a young woman, but he was just not sure if she was the right person for him to commit for marriage. Of course, the reasons for his feelings was that he was not able to make a commitment, not to a college major, not to a job, or even to the young woman that he was dating, in the possibility of marriage. In a world of so many options, it can be overwhelming to find one choice and to stick with it. The dilemma of our day is that so many choices can cloud the path to true discernment of what God's call is for each one of us. You are here because of the calling you received for the diaconate. Wisely, the church also involves the wives of deacons in the formation program. within the discernment process, so that the call to serve involves your relationship with your wife and your family. As you well know, serving as a deacon may encompass so many roles in the church. The commitment to service may lead you to places that you were not planning upon, are expecting to go to. To serve as a deacon, perhaps in a hospital setting, in a prison, or in an institution other than the parish setting. These different opportunities can stress the commitment that you feel was first present when you were called to serve. But with the grace of God, you have persevered. The opening collect for last Sunday's Mass, the opening prayer was, "O God, who show the light of your truth to those who go astray, so that they may return to the right path. Give all, for who the faith they profess are accounted Christians, the grace to reject whatever is contrary to the gospel, and to strive after all that does the name of Christ honor." This is truly a prayer for discernment and commitment to be followers of Christ in a world that affords so many alternative, usually dead-end paths that leads to a sense of not having a purpose in our lives for many of our young people. I recently read a statistic that was astounding to me. The loneliest people in our society today are 18 to 35-year-olds. They are the ones that have thousands of friends on social media, but they lack the human interaction, that purpose for which God has created us. If you do not have to make a commitment to even having friends, meeting with them, how can you make a commitment to the major decisions of life, to the vocation of marriage, or of religious life, or of ordination? This was recently brought home to me when I celebrated Mass and was invited afterwards to a gathering of high school students. It was on a larger parish complex. The Mass, of course, was celebrated in the church, and the gathering for the students was across the parking lot in the parish center, which was divided into different rooms of numerous sizes. I did not know exactly where the gathering would be in the parish center. But as I walked over, I said to myself, listen for the noise and you'll know where the high schoolers are. But when I entered the building, all I heard was silence. I was a bit confused, but I looked into a few of the rooms until I found them. To say that I was astonished at finding no one in conversation, but everyone seated at round tables like you yourselves are seated and on their phones. It was an awe-struck moment for me. And I thought, how can this happen to our young people? They don't even have an awareness of people sitting right next to them or across from them at the table. Our role as a church is inevitably linked to helping God's people open their hearts to the call of God so that they can commit their lives to Him. As deacons and wives of deacons, you have risked responding to God's call in support of ministry to God's people. Your very ordination and the mutual support that you have for one another in ministry clearly illustrates what commitment truly means. But the joy of your commitment to Christ must be shared with our young people today. I urge you in your ministry to become aware of the ways in which you can engage our young adults. There's, I hear at your meeting tonight, even our younger deacons, in truly thinking about their commitment to Jesus Christ and his church. From the very beginning, in the Acts of the Apostles, we know that deacons were ordained for service. Many of our young people find meaning when they are doing something that helps others. Even those who have no affiliation with any type of faith seem to find meaning when they're able to help others. Providing them the opportunities for service can introduce them to the church and the reason why we choose to serve in the name of Jesus Christ. Let me give you an example of how this is effective. Some years ago, I was serving as bishop of the Diocese of Springfield, Massachusetts. At that time, there was a terrible hurricane, Hurricane Maria, you may remember this, that affected the people of Puerto Rico. The people of one of the parishes in the diocese discovered that because they had relatives in the area, many who were homeless made their way to the Diocese of Springfield, particularly to an area of Springfield. While some were living with relatives, many found themselves in motels or hotels for some duration. To their credit, the people of the local parish organized a potluck supper, collecting supplies such as winter clothing, because winter was coming, hot plates, and other useful items for them in their motel and hotel rooms. After the meal, the people who attended were invited to shop for supplies that they would need for the upcoming weeks and months. One young woman asked her husband to come to the event. While the woman was a faithful church attender, active in her parish, her husband was not. But after the event was over, while they were still standing in the parish hall, her husband remarked to her that he really had a great time, and he felt that he was really helpful, and it was a good feeling. His wife remarked to him, pointing over to where the church was, "We do what we do here because of what we do there." It didn't take an advanced theological degree to make that connection and to share that connection, to bring it together for her husband. The next Sunday, and all the following Sundays, her husband was with her in church. As deacons and as wives of deacons, you have that unique opportunity to witness what your commitment to Christ and to each other means for you, and a venue to invite others on this journey to salvation. Pope Francis often spoke of accompaniment in walking with others. This sense of accompaniment is so needed in our church today, helping our younger Catholics to realize what they are missing when they do not have a commitment to Christ and a supportive community in which to live out that commitment. Often, you are on the front lines of ministry. I urge you to use those opportunities to reach out to those who may be on the fringes of the church. It does not take an advanced theological degree. It may take an invitation, just stepping out and inviting someone to participate, not necessarily even in a religious service, but perhaps in some sort of service that the church community is sponsoring. As you have responded to the call to diaconal ministry, and for those of you who are married, you already know the importance of responding to God's call. You have grown in your love for each other as husband and wife, and the two of you, together with your families, have responded within the sacraments of ordination and marriage to God's call. In your discernment, you have asked the right questions. For example, in marriage, is this the person that God is calling me to spend the rest of my life with, to share his love in the world? And is God calling me within my family to ordained service for the church? Of course, I have oversimplified these questions, for you know the depth of discernment that is necessary to make a willful and a free response. You have done so, enlightened by the faith that was passed on to you by your families, who taught you of our faith and all that it means to them, and now to you. Unfortunately, with all the distractions of this world, I'm finding that people do not even know the questions to ask, those questions of the basis of faith and what gives their lives meaning. In a radically individualistic and consumer society, many can choose merely to live at the surface level, not achieving a depth that stirs the important questions and longings in their lives that lead to a vocational commitment, much less hear the voice of God call to them. A priest related this story to me. He was attending the wake service at a funeral home. The memorial cards that were on the lectern had the image of Jesus, a very famous image that we know. A young boy, around 12, was standing by that podium that held the cards. The boy picked up the card, looked at the priest and said, "Who is this?" By the time you and I were 12 years old, we certainly would have known whose image was on that card, as well as many other aspects and tenets of our faith. How can a person respond to a call when he or she doesn't even know with whom the call originates? Sadly, we have witnessed that individualism and consumerism of our age that have left many people with lives that are lonely and empty. Ours is a faith that answers go far beneath the surface to our very soul's longing in the person of Jesus Christ. Over the years, as bishop, I've done many parish visits where some of the people say to me, "Bishop, what is going to happen to our parish? We don't see the young people here." And yet, some parishes are creative in offering opportunities for younger and older people to get together to build bridges and to nurture faith opportunities. It's not merely the older ones who are teaching the younger members. The young people are teaching seniors how to be tech savvy in using computers, social media, and that technology available to us. The older members bring their wisdom and life experience to share with the younger people. Other parishes have brought people together on service projects and then provided opportunities after those projects to get together for prayer and discussion on how those projects carry on the ministry of Christ in our world. Opportunities like these give a sense of meaning to both younger and older members and open the hearts of young members to respond to a real call of faith and of service. As deacons and wives of deacons, you may know of ways to involve different generations to come together, to serve, to pray, and to build community. In doing so, you provide the means for people to ask those deeper questions of life, faith, and purpose, so that hearts may be open to God's call to them. Responding to a vocational call is only possible with a foundation of faith, which gives rise to younger people asking the important questions, making fertile ground for the voice of God to truly speak to them in a world that's filled with so many noises that seem to drown out God's voice. Recently, Pope Leo XIV reminded a gathering of priests. Many seem to have strayed from the faith. Yet deep within many people, especially young people, there is a thirst for the infinite and for salvation. Many feel an absence of God, even though every human being is made for him. And the Father's plan is to make Christ the heart of the world. End of quote. What Pope Leo has said is an invitation to each one of us to accompany young people on the journey to Christ in their lives, so that they, like us, may be enriched in discerning Christ's call to them. All of us, especially those in diaconal service, are familiar with chapter 6 of the Acts of the Apostles. Many of you probably had this reading read at your ordinations. The early church was faced with the dilemma of heeding the Lord's call to preach the word, persist in prayer, and be of service to others. It was the choice of those 7 men, the first deacons of the church, that signaled the church was adapting to changing times. From those ancient days of the early church to our very time, we realize that the church has adapted to preaching the gospel in every age. Vatican II, inspired by the Holy Spirit and Pope John XXIII's vision, gave the church the path to preach the gospel in a world that had so drastically changed in the previous century. Pope Leo XIII, at the end of the 19th century, realized the impact of the Industrial Revolution upon the working class, and thus he proclaimed Rerum Novarum, calling for the rights of workers, the right of labor to form unions, and the recognition that laborers are not really just a means to an end, but rather have the inherent dignity that God had given them. I believe that it is significant that our most recently elected Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV, has recognized that we are at the turn of another age, with the rising ascendancy of artificial intelligence and its possible effects on dehumanizing people. We find ourselves in an age of expediency, lamenting, as Pope Francis did, the throwaway culture which looks upon the usefulness of things and people as the guiding force of their inherent dignity. Unfortunately, this type of mindset has permeated our society, as is witnessed by the breakup of marriages, the breakdown of family relationships, and the unwillingness to commit one's life to a vocational calling. And yet, seeking one's own happiness in the many choices that are afforded today has only brought despair and unhappiness. The Church offers us the vocation of marriage and ordination as permanent aspects of our lives, filled with the grace of God that comes in these sacraments. Soon after Vatican II, there was a publication that came out that I still use even today. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's a publication called Liturgicon. And it was put out to be a compendium of the translation of prayers from Latin into English to be used in the Church. In particular, I used the celebration of a wedding anniversary. And part of the introduction states, "The world today has great need of the living sermon, which your example of fidelity and love shows forth. You have been dauntless in the face of many problems and difficulties, known only to yourselves and hidden from others, that could have made your marriage something entirely than it has actually been." It continues, "But because you have been faithful to God, He has been faithful to you, blessed you abundantly, and with His help, you have been able to accomplish what you of yourselves without divine aid could never have accomplished." I quote those words because they convey the reality of what the vocation means. Whether in marriage, sacred ordination, religious profession, or the single life, there has to be a sense of God's accompaniment with us, a calling that has its origin in God and its persistence in commitment, because God is the center of this call. In a unique way, many of you as deacons, along with your wives, experience this in your commitment of marriage, as well as in sacred ordination. I remind married couples that their marriage is a witness to the wider church, not merely a private commitment between the two, but it is the wider community who benefit from their witness of love and care for each other. Your witness of commitment to one another through the trying times signifies the depth of vocation that God has given to you. In sacred ordination, that commitment is reflected in faithfulness to prayer and service. In a throwaway culture, this depth of commitment needs to be shared with those who are struggling to find their place in life by opening their hearts to the call of God and responding to it, and then persisting in the commitment. A few years ago, I heard the homily of a priest who was speaking to religious sisters, celebrating the jubilee of their religious profession. At that time, I was much younger. But something that he said to those sisters in the homily really struck me. He said, those of us who are older, who know that any other path in life is now closed to us, have the joy of knowing our response to the Lord to serve his church is surely for the rest of our lives. This perpetual commitment, a resolved response to the Lord's call, does indeed bring a depth of joy that nothing else in this world can. Gatherings such as this help to encourage us in our commitments to ministry, in service, and in prayer. And your response to the Lord's call in both marriage and diaconal ministry is a powerful witness to the Lord's grace that continues to be at work in every age. I encourage you to share the stories of your marriage and your call to service as deacon with others. They will benefit in learning of the joy that persistence and commitment brings to your lives and the joy that you want for them. Our world unabashedly offers many lights contrary to the gospel that so often lead to despair, to loneliness, even the inability to ask the depth and major questions of life. Having responded to the call of the Lord and knowing the joy that comes from it, we can share with others that there is a true alternative to a throwaway culture and a life of shallow choices. We're all here because we believe that answer is Jesus Christ himself. That answer lies in his call, in his love, and ultimately in our response. May these days together be for you grace-filled and nourishing in your commitment to your vocation, to following the Lord Jesus, so that you too, in turn, may inspire others to be true disciples of him. Thank you.